You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Breakdown. I'm Matt Hamilton. That's Matt Cassel. And Matt, we got a good one on Monday night as we saw the Chiefs knock off the Raiders in an absolute thriller. What's the biggest thing you take away from that game?
You know, it's just the resiliency of this team. It was unbelievable to go down 17 points. And that's the thing about the Kansas City Chiefs. They're always dangerous. They always can come back from any type of deficit, but in the fashion in which they did, and then trading blows in the second half, there was a lot to be made out of some controversial calls, whether it was the strip sack by Chris Jones, some of the pass interference calls. And they were able to overcome all that. And that's the mark of a great team. They stuck with it. They made the big stop on the 2-point conversion against Josh Jacobs to really seal the deal there. But it was just the grittiness of this team and how Patrick Mahomes played down the stretch, some of these third down conversions, keeping drives alive. And at the end of the day, they got the job done. And that was a big, big win against a Raiders team that came out to try to prove a point in this game.
And you mentioned that 17-0 deficit and the Chiefs offense having some struggles early. We did see the Raiders come out and play a lot of men, which people are usually scared to do against the Chiefs for the obvious reasons. Do you think that played a role in that Chiefs slow start?
I think so, because when you look at this Raiders defense and how people like to scheme up and play the Chiefs right now, it's primarily been a lot of zone, right? Keep the ball in front, and they came out and they were aggressive. They played man, they were playing press man across the board, and that's what you saw early on, that the Chiefs struggled. They went punt, missed field goal, punt in the first 3 series, and there had to be adjustments that had to be made on the sideline, maybe even to the game plan going into this game. They probably thought, hey, look, we're going to get more zone, and they made those adjustments, and then you saw that 11-play drive that went down the field, scored the touchdown, 2-minute drill before the half. But really, it was 5 straight possessions after those first 3 drives where they put points on the board, 4 of those being touchdown drives.
Yeah, and it was really impressive to see those adjustments. I mean, sometimes when we've seen the Chiefs offense struggle, it's kind of been the opposite. They come out hot, the Andy Reid script is on point, and then when they get off script and the defense starts making their adjustments, they get into a lull. But this year we've seen this Chiefs offense, for the most part, continue to thrive in the second half and even get better as the game goes along. So that's definitely been encouraging to see. And Matt, I have to ask you, as a quarterback, we see that Chris Jones roughing the passer call. Even as a quarterback, this rule is broken right now. Don't you agree?
It's absolutely broken. And look, I'm all for protecting the quarterback, the hits to the head, the low hits. I mean, but the surface area in which these guys are told to tackle the quarterback, it's almost getting so ridiculous where they can't even make a tackle. It's 2-hand touch, and it's definitely broken. And that was a great example of it. The Grady Jarrett play against Brady the other day was another horrific call, but it's an example of what the league's lean toward. They're trying to protect these quarterbacks at all costs. However, it's taken away from the game. These guys are paid to be disruptive, to come attack the quarterback, but then once you get there, you're only allowed to gently place them on the ground, and it's hard to play football that way. Look, we signed up for a physical, violent game. We know that going in, and I just think it takes away from the competitive aspect of it when you protect the quarterback in that way.
Yeah, and I feel like we've gotten to the point now where it's almost like the catch rule was a few years ago. It's gotten harder and harder to define. The common sense has kind of gone out the window because it was one of those things. Like, I feel like I know a catch when I see it. I feel like I know a roughing the passer when I see it, and I know what's not roughing the passer. And now, those lines, and I understand what happened with Tua. I think shook everybody's cage, and it's something that we never want to see in the game again. But I feel like we're overcorrecting now, and just going overboard with these roughing the passer calls. So hopefully they'll sit down at some point and define things a little bit more clearly and get this to a place where, these game-changing plays aren't wiped off the board.
Well, that's the big part of it too. Like you said, the competition committee's got to get together because these are game-changing plays. They impact the outcome of these games, and you only have so many games that you play throughout the course of a season, a 17-game season, and every one of them are important to your end result and winning championships, going to the playoffs, doing all that. And to have it taken out of the players' hands on a good play because they're trying to protect somebody to that extent, it really takes away from the competitiveness on the field taking place and those guys playing.
Yeah, and luckily, unlike the Falcons, the end result wasn't impacted for the Chiefs. They ended up pulling it out regardless. A big part of that reason, obviously, Travis Kelce with those 4 touchdowns. What stood out to you from that connection between Mahomes and Kelce? Obviously, we know it's always been one of the best connections in the league, but this was absolutely absurd Monday night.
It was the stat line, right? The stat line of 4 touchdowns. Because if you look at the yardage and all that stuff, you're not just blown away by it, but it's also the connection that those guys have, the familiarity, the rapport, the trust, everything that goes into those plays. And also Kelce, he's just got a sixth sense about himself. And Patrick Mahomes always seems to be on the same page. You saw so many different times, even there's the angle route, right? He throws back shoulder. He trusts him on that one. Then there's a play where really the Raiders defense played it really well. They chipped him on the shallow route. All the things happened, but all of a sudden Kelce feels that soft spot. He sits down, he gets it, and then he breaks 2 tackles, goes in the end zone, and the effort was incredible. And then also there was one play though. I was like the crossing route at the goal line. I was like, how do you not account for Kelce? He's wide open. Like he is their premier guy. So there's some of that as well. But it's again, we've been seeing it for years now. Those two are special. That union that they have, the rapport, like I said, in the relationship, it's just one of those things that they have something that's very special that's hard to create for a quarterback and a tight end.
And I think that's where we have to start today as we dig into this film. Just take a look at a couple of those plays with Travis Kelce in the red zone. Matt, what did you see here?
Yeah, so you've got man-to-man right here, and it's what we call one funnel. And so as Travis Kelce comes over, he's really kind of creating this bunch. And when you look up at Valdez, Scantling up top, and also Juju Smith, they're in a stack. What's taking place on the defensive side of the ball is they've got a combo going on inside. The interior defensive back takes first inside. The other guy takes first outside. But the big part about this for Kelce is he's one-on-one with that DB that just ran across the formation. So he's going to sell that flat right now. And as he starts to sell that flat, you can see that DB's in a panic mode, right? He's out of position. He's got to get over the top. He's got to get through this junk, this mess of the bunch and the stack. And then when he sells it, Kelce he puts his foot in the ground and starts coming in on that angle. And that's where the soft spot of this defense, they already overcommitted to the flat. He should be open, but the guy that's going to make the play here is the safety. He's just reading eyes. He's trying to get involved in the play. He's coming to make a play, but this is what I love about it. It was in rhythm by Patrick Mahomes. He put the ball on his back shoulder to protect the throw, and then Kelce's able to fall in for the touchdown.
Yeah, and I love the play design here because people want to, the ball's going to Kelce down in this area. How do you do things to free him up? I absolutely love that play design. And you're right. The ball placement by Mahomes was such a big factor here because the safety, Deron Harmon, to me, does a great job reading this, reading Mahomes, reading Kelce, making a break on this, but he's just a hair too late, and the ball placement is so perfect. It's impossible for anybody to make a play on that ball. Harmon gets as close as I think you can possibly get
right
in this position, but yeah, it's just that's a tall order for anybody.
Yeah, like you said, it's well executed, and it's also great play design because, again, there's so much stuff. When you're playing man-to-man, what you're trying to do is create confusion, make people communicate through that combo, what we talked about between those two DBs, then also give them different looks and have to run through traffic. And all of those elements came together and created a successful play down there.
And now we'll move to another one of Kelce's touchdowns. This was
another one. How many did he have? Oh, yeah, he had 4.
This was maybe the prettiest one of them all. What stood out to you here?
Yeah, you know what? Again, it was heavy man, and that's how you started to see this game unfold. And so this is a typical man play here. You got McCole Hardman on the inside and the 3 wide receivers set down low. Kelce's up top in a cut split. Once again, it's very defined man coverage. You can see it. The safety right there has got eyes on Kelce here because what happens in a cut split is that DB's got outside leverage funneling everything inside to his help. But if Kelce goes shallow, then that safety is supposed to cut it, and it frees up the DB on the backside. Now you've got the whole player in the middle with the middle linebacker, and that's Mecole Hardman's job, is to go up and set this pick, or rub as we like to call it. He's going to set the pick, and Kelce's supposed to come underneath in his wake to create that spatial stuff. Now the backer, what I think he does a really good job here is he fights through Mecole Hardman, and he's able to get hands on Travis Kelce inside that 5-yard range to knock him off of his route and really mess up the timing. Mahomes knows that that's where he wants to go with the ball, but he, again, does a really good job of extending the play. Kelce, his instincts take over. He feels the soft spot, sits down. Mahomes gives him the ball, and the effort here, what he does with the ball when he gets it in his hands, is just special.
Yeah, it really is. And I also love seeing Sky Moore getting involved there, doing a nice job with that rub, getting a piece of as many Raiders as he possibly can to help free Kelce out there.
That's right. I mean, and you look at the effort by these wide receivers. I mean, everybody is blocking at the end of this play. You watch Mecole Hardman at the end of this play. You watch Sky Moore. All these guys are getting involved, saying, hey, we got to get our guy into the end zone. And that's what I love about it, the effort on this play by this team. And especially, I mean, Kelce's effort is one, but you see everybody else giving maximum effort to make sure that they secure their block and help spring him into the end zone.
It really was beautiful to watch. And so is this last play that we're going to show. This is in the fourth quarter. Chiefs up by 1. This is what led to Kelce's 4th touchdown. Break this one down.
Yeah, this is a huge play right here. It's 3rd and 15, and it's really interesting because, once again, it's a form of man coverage. You can tell that they're given a little bit of a too high shell look, but when you look at the actual defense and the structure of this defense, they take Colin Farrell out and they say, hey, we want you to stand over Travis Kelce down here, who's isolation, and he's split out wide, and they just want to disrupt him at the line of scrimmage. Then they got a safety right behind him. So they're obviously giving a lot of attention to Kelce right here, which deservedly so. But what that does is it frees up these other guys with one-on-one opportunities, and then you've got the weak safety here dropping in as a robber. And his eyes are supposed to be on Patrick Mahomes, and he's supposed to give help and presence to anything on the interior part of that field. Now, as you watch this play go, Colin Farrell does a good job of getting his hands on him, disrupting the route. But then Mecole Hardman, in that speed, he pushes up, he recognizes that it's post safety, goes vertical with his stem, and then comes across at that deep angle. You've got the end cut in behind him, but Patrick steps up in the pocket. And when he steps up and gives the threat of running, it really freezes that weak side safety who's supposed to be a robber and really give help on Mecole Hardman. He freezes him and is able to make a great throw off platform, accurate as all get out, to Mecole Hardman for a huge pickup in that drive.
Yeah, and it's a great job by the offensive line. And as you mentioned, Mahomes' step up there, his mobility, I feel like, we give Mahomes credit for so many things. His mobility is something that I feel like has been such a huge part of his success, because you have to account for it as a defense. As you said, that safety, that freezes him just enough so that over route comes open.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes him special. You could have a great play design, a great call defensively, but what just frustrates these defensive coordinators, gives them cold sweats at night, is plays like this. Because if that guy does commit to that over route, well, Mahomes is probably going to take off and pick up the first down with his legs, and that's what makes him really, really hard to defend on a consistent basis.
Yeah, it's an absolute nightmare for opposing defenses, I think, at this point, or it has been since he stepped into the league. So
that's right.
Yeah. So obviously that leads to the Kelce touchdown, puts him up 7, and you know what happened the rest of the way. So as fun as that was, as heated as that game was, it's about to get ratcheted up another level this week. We got Bills at Chiefs in that CBS late game window. Matt, initial thoughts going into this game. What do you think is going to be the difference maker for the Chiefs here?
The difference maker is going to start with the defense and that defensive secondary. We saw 2 big plays to Devontae Adams in this last game, and they're going to have to be everybody's going to have to be involved this week. They can't give up the big play to Josh Allen and these weapons that they have. Gabriel Davis has been outstanding. We know about Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie, and they are leading the league in terms of receiving yards at the wide receiver position, also touchdowns at the wide receiver positions with 12. So that that they're going to be in 11 personnel, mainly 3 wide receiver sets, and it's going to be the Josh Allen show. And it really is going to come down to, one, the secondary not giving up good plays, but two, trying to contain Josh Allen, be disciplined in your rush lanes. But I will say this, the one big strength of this Kansas City defense right now has been their rush between Clark, between Chris Jones, and these guys. They're getting after the quarterback when they're in passing situations, and they got to show up big to disrupt Josh Allen in this game.
And speaking of pass rushes, I think when you look at the recent history of the battles between these two teams, the inability for the Bills to generate a pass rush has been such a big factor. Obviously, that AFC Championship game when the Chiefs beat up on them, they go into the next draft. Their first 2 picks they spend on edge rushers. And last year, it wasn't quite enough. That divisional round, Mahomes had a lot of time back there in that divisional round game, especially down the stretch. So now the Bills go out and they get themselves Von Miller. So how do you see the Bills' pass rushing upgrades playing a role? Do you think they did enough? Do you think that Von Miller addition is going to be something that swings things in the balance in favor of the Bills now?
Well, you saw that early on, that the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line had some trouble with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, and until they kind of settled into their game plan and started to understand how to attack these guys. And look, there's no doubt about it. This is one of the premier defenses in the league, not in terms of just their rush defense, their pass defense, even with the injuries that they've had so far in this season. And so this is going to be a big challenge for this offensive line. They're stacked up front. Von Miller is an outstanding player. Russo, Daquan Jones stepped up last week. They got Jordan Phillips. I mean, there's guys that you can highlight up and down. They are a solid front that's going to challenge you. They've only given up 12 points a game this season. So, I mean, it's going to be one of those. You got to bring your hard hat. You got to get after them. And at the same time, you don't want to get into a ton of 3rd and long situations. It's really not going to benefit you as an offense. So being able to establish the run game like they have in recent weeks, that'll be a big factor as well.
Hey, sorry to interrupt today's podcast, but I have to tell you about a couple of our sponsors. First one being Liquid Death. You've heard us talk about this company all the time here on Kansas City Sports Network. Here at KCSN, we love Liquid Death, and when I'm looking through the bottled water section of my local store, and I say, oh, what are those strange tall boys up there? I know it's Liquid Death, and you might look at it and be like, wait, what is that up there? Kind of rad-looking cans. It's Liquid Death. And it's spring water from the Alps. It's not beer, and it is called Liquid Death. Yeah, that name jumps off the can. The can design, everything. I would show you a can, but I don't have one because I've drank all of them. I've drank everything that they've given me at Liquid Death because it's so delicious, because it absolutely murders your thirst. That's why it's called Liquid Death. It murders your thirst. And not only does it murder your thirst, but it brings death to plastic bottles. I hate plastic pollution. You hate plastic pollution. Their infinitely recyclable tall boy aluminum cans help bring death to that as well, that pollution. And they donate 10% of their profits to help kill plastic pollution. Another good thing about the folks over at Liquid Death. And let me tell you, they've got, I believe, 4 different flavors that you can get. No, 5 if you talk about their flavored sparkling waters. They've got a berry, they've got a mango, they've got a lime. All of them are very good. As a guy who drinks sparkling water myself, love the Liquid Death versions of them. Make sure you go check those out. They have just a still water, which is the water from the Alps. Kind of weird to be drinking out of a can, but it feels good to be drinking out of a can because you're doing good for the environment. And they also have just a regular sparkling water if you want to add it to your mixed drinks, maybe. Have it be a little bit of a beverage mixer you could have there with your Liquid Death. But they've got all kinds of things, and you can go find it at your local Woodman's, 7-Eleven, Roundy's, or Hy-Vee. Or, here's what you can do. You can go and find a Liquid Death retailer near you using code KCSN. That's liquiddeath.com/KCSN. Go to that website, find a Liquid Death retailer near you. That's liquiddeath.com/KCSN. Now let's get back to today's show.
You're right, and it isn't just about Von Miller. They really do have waves of guys, but I think the area where they are a little vulnerable this year, I mean, they're missing Trey White still. Micah Hyde is done for the year. I think that back end is vulnerable. We haven't really seen anybody exploit it yet because the protection hasn't been able to hold up. I think if the Chiefs offensive line can hold their ground, I think there is going to be an opportunity for some big plays against that secondary.
There is going to be some opportunities against that secondary. Like you said, this is not an experienced group. There's been a ton of turnover in that secondary. Guys that have been there for a long time, veterans, are not going to be on the field. And that's one part of this game that is going to be very intriguing to me, is how they take advantage of this youthful secondary and guys with maybe the backups that are in there and the inexperience that they have. But you see guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS stepping up all year. I mean, these guys have been big parts of the game. McCole Hardman last week had a big game, especially on third down. I thought he made some exceptional plays. So those guys are going to have to step up to the challenge this week, and they might be the guys that are going to be featured that have to go attack the secondary.
Yeah, and you mentioned the run game earlier. I know this might sound crazy to think or to say. We saw the Chiefs have success. Obviously, those were rainy conditions a couple of years ago in Buffalo, sloppy conditions where the Chiefs were able to lean on the ground game and beat up on the Bills and control the clock and keep the ball away from Josh Allen. I know Mahomes is obviously, at worst on the same level as Josh Allen, probably a little better than Josh Allen, I would say. So it's not like you want to take the game out of his hands, but with as explosive as this Bills offense has been, is there a thought to maybe leaning on the ground game a little bit more here and playing the time of possession game a little bit?
Anytime you can take the ball out of either one of these guys' hands and have sustained drives, and doing so with running the clock down, not, minimizing their possessions, that's a positive for this team. So if they can control the clock, if they can get positive yards on first and second down, running the ball, maybe bust a big one like Jerick McKinnon did on that 2nd and 17, do things like that throughout the course of this game to keep the momentum, keep the drives going, and also keep Josh Allen on the sideline, that's a benefit for the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I definitely think so, because right now, as good as the Chiefs offense has been, and they've been phenomenal all year, I don't know if they want to get into that game where you're going shot for shot with Josh Allen again, because while the depth of this receiving core has been impressive and Mahomes has been able to spread the ball around, we haven't seen, those 50-plus yard touchdowns with regularity like we used to see when Tyreek was there. So while I don't think the offense as a whole has really dropped off much, if at all, without Tyreek, I think that's the one area. It's just different than it was. I feel like they're just as effective. It's just in a different way. So I agree with you. I feel like those sustained drives could be the key in this one, because Buffalo, as we saw last week, they just have the ability to score, from anywhere on the field, including their own 2-yard line.
Yeah, anytime you go out and you throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns in the first half, that makes you an explosive offense. And again, it starts with Josh Allen. So the more you can disrupt him, the less that you can give up those big explosive plays and not get into that kind of shootout and not fall behind early like they did this last week, to where they got to fight and claw their way back into the game. That's going to be a benefit.
Yeah, for sure. And Matt, every time we've done this show, we've given our predictions at the end. Every single one of them, we've given the Chiefs the edge in these matchups. And, we're 4-1, just like the Chiefs are right now.
Yes.
How do you see this one play? Is this the first time you go with an opponent, or do you see the Chiefs pulling this one out?
I mean, until they come and knock them off at Arrowhead, right? Especially with the history that these teams have had, right? I'm going to still stick with the Chiefs. I'm going 31-30 Chiefs. It's going to be another game for the ages. I can't wait to watch it.
I'm with you. I think the Chiefs still have the edge in this matchup. I'm going 30-24. I think we do see the Chiefs get some of those sustained drives together, and I think we see Mahomes outplay Josh Allen.
Let's go, baby. Let's fire it up. I can't wait. I know Arrowhead's going to be rocking.
Well, we can't wait for it. That late game window on CBS, Nancy Romo on the call. I think it's going to live up to the hype and then some. And we'll be here again next week to break it all down for you, take you inside the film room, pick apart every angle of that matchup, and look ahead to next week as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. For Matt Cassel, I'm Matt Hamilton. We'll see you again next week.